Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola, good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Ken at 10. How are you today? Homes Under the Hammer still in the background today. We are live on Homes Under the Hammer between 11:15 and 12:15 in Streatham. Do take a look. Looking at the logo behind us, actually, one thing that you might notice when they interview both the presenters and the agents is what they call the Homes Under the Hammer wonk. And you'll notice the camera angle is always slightly twisted, just a few degrees. They call it the wonk, and it's a requirement. It's like one of the things that they do for every show. Have a look out for it on the show. How are you today? Welcome. If you haven't been here before, we are James Alexander Estate Agents. My name is Ken Hume, and this is Ken at 10. And that's because I'm Ken. It's 10. We broadcast daily and live from our offices in Southwest London, Norbury. And we're all about property, all about telling you what's going on locally, national headlines as well, and just really, to keep you knowing what's going on at what I call the coalface. That is where there are transactions going on daily, both for sales and rentals. People are renting, they're buying, and letting you know what the sentiment is, what the market's like, and what's happening. We lost a sale this week. Always really heartbreaking when we lose a sale. Really feel for our client. Very frustrating. It happens, Sometimes lenders will give a mortgage in principle, but when it comes to it and the underwriters look at it for one reason or another, they won't allow that buyer to purchase. And quite often we don't find out why. So very frustrating. But that's the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. Nothing is certain until you exchange contracts in this business. And it's a sad reality. Anyway, how are you? I hope you're well. Here in SW16, the weather is kind of grey and overcast, but quite warm, quite mild, really, quite temperate for the time of year, so we're quite happy, and it's dry, and that always helps with viewings, when it's dry. When it's rainy, we always say if you like it in the rain, you're going to love it in the sunshine. When it's sort of that grey area in between, it's a lot better than being out there in the rain. Sometimes we get absolutely soaked, as you can imagine. Lots of new instructions coming in as well. We've got one going to the auction that's just about to go live, and a number of other quality instructions coming up for you. So apart from that, what's going on in the markets? Well, today is, as many of you will know, they're calling it Black Thursday, because there's lots of negative stuff going on. We've got huge energy bill hikes. Looks like we've got an interest rate hike as well. More on NIC, National Insurance Contributions. It's all doom and gloom, isn't it? God, what can you say about that? So yeah, inflation is hitting massively. It's hitting families. And unfortunately, as I've said for some time now, the idea of this leveling up that will increase or reduce the gap between the richest and poorest doesn't seem to really have any impact. They're saying energy bills are set to soar. They're talking about energy bills going from an average of £200 a month to £600 a month. And then they say that millions may get £200. £200 isn't going to touch the sides for most people, so I don't really see how that's helping. And I do think people need more support, particularly with energy, particularly with gas and electric. The poor in society should be able to afford to heat their homes, but that's a conversation for another day. Let's look at interest rates first of all. The Daily Mail says that homeowners are bracing for the mortgage bill hikes as the Bank of England is expected to increase rates today, with inflation continuing to climb. So the idea is that they raise interest rates, and what that does is stops people spending because they feel a little bit more cautious, and in that reluctance to spend, so inflation comes down as the goods and services are not quite as much in demand. That's the theory. The reality is not always the same, but that's what they're basically doing. So they're looking to increase the rate from 0.25% to 0.5%. This would mark the first time officials have opted for a consecutive increase since 2004, with the Monetary Policy Committee lifting rates from 0.1% to 0.25% in December. About 2 million mortgage holders with variable rate mortgages will be affected almost immediately by any rise. If the base rate increases to 0.5%, it would cost borrowers with a typical £150,000 loan an extra £21 a month or £252 a year. Well, of course, here in London, those figures are much more stark. And one of the big frustrations, something else I've said for a while now, is that quite often with the lower end of the market, particularly blue collar workers, if they do lose their jobs, they're unable to refinance with another lender. They're stuck with their own lender, and that lender can be quite unreasonable with the rates that they're charging. I think there should be some sort of ruling about that. I think the bank should stop banks profiteering. The Bank of England should stop banks profiteering out of people's unfortunate circumstances. When people are in this situation where they can't remortgage because their circumstances have changed, but they're tied to that lender, quite often the lender will take advantage by pushing their standard variable rate, which nobody goes on anyway, apart from the poor people that can't go anywhere else. It doesn't seem right to me, but that's, again, something else that hopefully will be addressed at some point. It's not in the levelling up agenda, and one of the things that they could have looked at, actually. Conveyancing fees are up 21%, apparently, according to City AM, and that's not surprising. I mean, many more people have been using the services, but there have been less people available to provide those services. And there's a new kind of company, Brick Trade, is seeking to bring cryptocurrency and property together. This is something that I've been interested in for a while, and I saw this happening. I've been speaking about it for a while. This is an investment platform that aims to open up the property market to the crypto participants. Obviously, what I would say with crypto is be really careful. And this is not financial advice, but crypto, it is an exciting area of the market. And many of you will know my son works in that side of the business. But, what he would always say to me is when somebody says, is crypto going to rise or fall? Who knows? Nobody knows. So don't put any more than you can afford to lose. But I quite like the idea of something like crypto, which is by its very nature quite volatile, being linked to property, bricks and mortar, and having some sort of fund that will do that. And Bricktrade is seeking to do that. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. The founder, Gov Kang, said, our aim at Bricktrade is to create an innovative and accessible platform to facilitate a relationship between developers and investors. It's important to make the market accessible for everyone. So interesting to see where that goes. Leveling up renovations are likely to push up rents. Well, this is exactly the opposite of what we want, isn't it? This is an article in the Telegraph, but it's a fact. Landlords have been warning government that leveling up plans could exacerbate housing shortages and push up rents if investors are forced to renovate nearly 800,000 properties. The new minimum standards for rents announced as part of the white paper come on top of existing rules forcing landlords to make properties more energy efficient. This has already added an estimated £10,000 bill per property. The new measures could actually cost another $15,000 on top of that. The National Residential Landlords Association claims the government cost of upgrades would force landlords to sell up unless there was a government support package. And I would agree with that. There are lots of landlords out there that are sitting on quite big paper profits. And if you push too hard, they will just back out, take their gains and invest them elsewhere. So I think it's a really delicate balance on the part of the government. Yes, they need to make sure that tenants are protected and homes are safe and energy efficient, but there is a limit to how far you can push landlords before they'll go the other way. And the vilification of landlords in this country is totally out of order and unnecessary. They talk about rogue landlords. Very, very rarely, we manage hundreds of properties here in Southwest London, and it's very, very rarely that I speak to a landlord that isn't prepared to do their bit when it comes to compliance and make sure they've got everything required, the energy performance certificate, all the safety certification, and wants to do the right thing by their tenants. But of course, all those things come at a cost, not least the property itself, which is at a high cost these days. So many people think that because a rent is high, the landlord is therefore making a lot of money. It's not necessarily the case. Some of them are breaking even or worse, but they're betting on capital growth and using that for their families, perhaps for their children's education later on as a form of investment, and perhaps for their pension. We have many pensioners that use property in this way as well. And I really do, it really does get to me that landlords are considered the devil incarnate in many cases, and most of them are honestly just ordinary people that have taken a view that property is a good commercial investment and they want to get involved. And what's wrong with that? I thought capitalism was here. Apparently not. A Wimbledon bungalow is on the market for £2 million. A bungalow for £2 million. Can you imagine? This has come on the market, and it's the most expensive single-story home ever in the UK. And it's not in London, is it? Well, it's, interesting. Wimbledon, I mean, if you've ever been to Wimbledon Village, if you haven't, then I'd suggest you do. It's quite an experience. They do have the Ivy restaurant there as well, or one of them. And it's a beautiful place, and it's quite special. And obviously, it's one of those places, we think of the tennis, but that's more the Southfield side. This side of Wimbledon, the Village, is a beautiful place, but careful if you're going to a restaurant, you can spend hundreds of pounds. I went into a restaurant once with a developer. Thankfully, he was paying. He paid, I think it was £400 for a bottle of wine. I didn't even drink, but because I was driving, but it just made me think, gosh, it's a completely different league around there. So it doesn't surprise me that you can get very expensive bungalows there. And I imagine a lot of people rattling around in those properties opposite the common there will downsize from that for maybe, 5-6 mil and consider it quite cheap at a couple of mil. But to the rest of us, it seems extraordinary, doesn't it? So yeah, apart from that, we have a number of things going on today. Lots of viewings, lots of people out viewings, number of new instructions, and a few negotiations from offers coming in. And as I say, I'm excited to see lots of new things coming to market, frustrated to see one fall through. It's rare with us, but it does happen. We do our very best to make sure and check and everything, double check, make sure they have the deposit, that they have the offer in principle. But the offer in principle isn't the offer itself. And what happened in this case was the client just couldn't get the actual offer because the underwriters took a different view. And that's really frustrating for us and our clients as well. So hopefully we can make that right. But I hope you have a good day today. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition. Don't forget, Homes Under the Hammer, 11:15 today. You'll see us in there in Streatham. Look out for the wonk on that lens. Have a fantastic day. Look after yourselves, and if you can, your friends and family. Ciao.